And he's been a Second Amendment activist for more than 20 years, almost as long as I've been alive. He's the founder of the 3% movement, and he's also a citizen journalist. With the help of fellow blogger David Codrea, he broke the Fast and the Furious scandal story on the internet in December 2010 with his blog, Sipsy Street Irregulars. I want to introduce Mr. Mike Vanderboegh.
You'll have to bear with me here. I'm not very good at this speech and stuff. I have to write my speech and then read it. But as he said, my name is Mike Vanderboegh, and I'm from the great free state of Alabama, and I'm a 3%er. This is not the first time Alabamians have come to Texas in her hour of need. There's an Alabama flag hanging in the building behind me there, marking the sacrifice of Alabamians here at the Alamo. Yeah. But that was the least of my state's losses in your War of Independence. After the surrender and massacre at Goliad, it is said that every single planter family in northern Alabama along the Tennessee River went into mourning, grieving for their lost sons whose lives were squandered by Colonel Fannin. Alabamians have since then been a little more than skeptical about Texas colonels. But for myself, I expect to make it back to Alabama in one piece, although I suppose that's up to the city leadership of San Antonio. Well, for those of you who don't know me, if you need to pigeonhole my politics, I consider myself a Christian libertarian. I believe in God, free men, free markets, the rule of law under the Founders' Republic, and that the Constitution extends to everyone regardless of race, creed, color, or religion. I most especially believe in the right of the people to keep and bear arms as the ultimate guarantor of liberty. Now, I've also been called a seditionist by members of the current regime. If faithfully fulfilling my oath to the Founders' Republic and unrelenting hostility to those who would undermine and overthrow it makes me a seditionist, then I cheerfully plead guilty. The 3% movement I founded has been denounced by that paragon, of moral virtue, Bill Clinton, and I'm a perennial honorable mention on the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of dangerous folks. Oh, yeah. I have even been the subject of an 18.5-minute rant by Rachel Madcow on MSNBC. And the current Attorney General of the United States knows and despises me by name because of the Fast and Furious scandal that, with my friend David Codrea, I broke news of on the internet. Eric Holder would not be surprised to know that the feeling is mutual. Now, the Coalition to Stop Gun Violence calls me an insurrectionist because I don't believe, as they do, in a government monopoly of violence, but rather in a literal interpretation of the Second Amendment as a bulwark against tyranny. Well, as my friend Kurt Hoffman says, it is better to be despised by the despicable than admired by the admirable. And I suppose today will only reinforce my enemy's opinions of me, but I think I can bear the burden. But as you can see by my hat, I've also been forced by circumstances to be a smuggler. You see, the current spate of citizen disarmament laws in states like Colorado, Connecticut, Maryland, New York has led me on a campaign to resist, evade, defy, and smuggle in opposition to those laws. Now this is my specialty, a 30-round standard capacity magazine.
Stewart.
So far, my friends and I have broken the laws regarding those in 3 states. And we intend to do it in every state that bans it. We don't smuggle for money. We give the magazines away to people who have committed no crime, save the ones that these state officials, these petty tyrants, have created. So am I a lawbreaker? They certainly think so.
They're lawbreakers.
But it is an established principle of American jurisprudence that an unconstitutional law is null and void.
Right, yeah.
So I suppose one man's criminal is another man's freedom fighter. Now, this same principle was at the center of the civil rights movement in the 60s, as was the concept of armed civil disobedience and the right of self-defense against uniformed criminals acting out their prejudices on the innocent under color of law. Few, however, know this part of our history. Raise your hands if you've ever heard of the Deacons for Defense and Justice. How many of you ever heard of the Deacons? Not very many. The Deacons formed black self-defense militias made up mostly of veterans of World War II and Korea, often carrying the weapons they had smuggled back from the wars. And they protected the advocates of nonviolent resistance. It's ironic, huh? We've all heard of Martin Luther King's Gandhian principles, but few know that when he came to my adopted hometown of Birmingham, Alabama, he slept soundly and safely because armed men like Condoleezza Rice's father guarded him with firearms in their hands and determination in their hearts. The Deacons were the 3%ers of their time and place. And like the Deacons, we 3%ers are here today not to break the law, but rather to reinforce those laws against those who would force an opinion-driven agenda as punishment upon the law-abiding under the mere color of law.
3%!
The concept of the 3% harkens back to the Revolution, when, as best we can determine, only 3% of American colonists actually took the field against the king. They were actively supported by perhaps another 10%, with a further 20% approving, but merely acting as cheerleaders from the sidelines. Likewise, a third of the population supported the king, and the final third blew with the wind and took what came. Today, this third is watching Dancing with the Stars and gossiping about the Kardashians. Some things never change. The lesson of our revolution, as relevant today as then, is that history is made by determined minorities. For good or ill, this has been true throughout the ages. The founders were such a determined minority. So too are the people today who are determined to subvert and overthrow the founders' republic and replace it with some supposedly benevolent collectivist board. To those people, the 3% of today declare, we will not disarm.
No!
You cannot convince us. You cannot intimidate us. You can kill us if you think you can. But remember, we'll shoot back. And I might add, there's more of us than there are of you. And we're not going away. So, it's your move, Mr. Wannabe Tyrant. It's your move.
Bring it on!
You know, another way of putting this is that when democracy turns to tyranny, the armed citizenry still gets to vote. This is not sedition. This is not insurrection. It is a philosophy that the founders embodied and would endorse today. The men who died at the point of Mexican bayonets behind those walls would endorse it as well.
They sure would.
This philosophy does not even constitute revolution. We don't want to overthrow the government. We simply want to restore it to the founders' model of what a republic should be. It is that determined minority of so-called progressives, the statists, the collectivists, call them what you will, who have spent the last century waging a quiet revolution against the Constitution and the rule of law embodied by the Founders' Republic. Thus, if you wish to be precise, we are the forces of counter-revolution to the collectivist revolution. We are indeed the forces of restoration. And whether we can restore the Republic remains to be seen. I know of no example in history where a republic so corrupted, so undermined by its internal and external enemies, has saved itself from bloody collapse. So it remains to be seen. But I do know we must try.
That's right.
There is abroad in our land the growing thought that America is now, in fact, two countries sharing a common border and mostly a common language, but divided along the answer to this question: does the government serve the people, or do the people serve the government?
They serve us. They work for us. They should serve us.
Now, Mika Brzezinski of MSNBC recently reinforced this idea when she accused your Senator Ted Cruz of not being loyal to or caring about, quote, the country.
Oh, crap.
Now, it's apparent to me that Ted Cruz is in fact loyal to my country and to his, which is the Founders' Republic.
Yeah.
It is equally apparent that Mika Brzezinski does not see him as loyal to her country. She believes that people should serve the government. Ted Cruz and the rest of us, and I'm sure all here, answer the question differently. Now, this is not a question whose answer can be finessed, compromised, or negotiated. It is either one or the other. It is either the answer of individual liberty or that of the collectivist board. It cannot be both. It cannot be part of either. Now, for our part, we'd be happy just to be left alone.
There you go.
But the collectivist impulse, the tyrannical appetite, cannot be readily denied by its practitioners. It is an addiction for which there is no easy 12-step program. And those who possess this insatiable appetite for other people's liberty, property, and lives can only be deterred by the compelling and credible counter-argument that such appetites come with personal consequences for them, consisting at the least of a bad case of indigestion and, if necessary, broken teeth. So, are we irrevocably two countries and not one?
One country.
We are here today to test that theory. We are here today to learn whether we are two countries or still one, united and indivisible under the Constitution and the rule of law. And I might add that we have the officials of San Antonio to thank for that.
Amen.
When San Antonio enforces its leaders' political opinions under color of law, and I'm talking to you, Mr. Police Chief, they are no better than Bull Connor in Birmingham in 1963, 50 years ago. What we have seen here in this city of the Alamo is not law enforcement. It is agenda enforcement under the color of law, which is itself illegal and unconstitutional. When Police Chief William McManus is quoted as saying that he doesn't care what Texas law is, he is declaring himself to be the modern-day Bull Connor. I hope he wears the name with pride. I'm sure it'll get him an invitation to the next Democrat Party convention. Now, I am shamelessly lifting this next observation from my good friend Bob Wright of New Mexico, who's here today. What is it Barack Obama is fond of saying? Let us be clear.
Obama been lying.
Our constitutional rights are not subject to the anti-firearm neuroses of our liberal neighbors or those of nervous public officials. That is why we are here today on this spot sacred to the liberty of all Americans. That is why we were here, to determine whether we still live in one country or two. The answer is up to the city officials of San Antonio.
The people.
Are they still part of the Founders Republic? Do they support the actual rule of law and the Constitution that they took an oath to uphold?
No, they don't.
Their own declaration of the answer to these questions will be seen on the streets of San Antonio today and going forward. And going forward, not just today when there's thousands of people that are looking on, hundreds of people here who are armed to the teeth.
Yeah, Barry Santoro.
So which is it, Mr. Mayor? Which is it, City Council of San Antonio? Which is it, Chief? You tell us. But take care with your answer. For we are the 3%.
3%.
And we will honor our oaths to the Constitution and the rule of law, even if you will not. Thank you very much.